Live from Beit Shemesh and broadcasted around the world, you are listening to the Frum Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Nahum Kligman. Interviews and advice from Jewish entrepreneurs from around the world. Listen, learn, be Matzliach.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Frum Entrepreneur, and today I have an incredible guest, as all my guests are, but this one is really outstanding, as they all are. I got to say that. But very much welcome to our interview, Hillel Fuld. Those who may not know of him, you will one day. He is a rising superstar in the tech world, especially in the Anglo world in Israel. We're going to go a little bit into what he's doing now, what he's about. We have some really important, really great topics we're going to cover. So right now, Hillel is the CMO. His official position, or one of his official positions, is Chief Marketing Officer of Zula. And Hillel, welcome to the show. Maybe tell us a little bit about Zula.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My official position is CMO of Zula, my only official position. You know, I'm helping and trying to advise startups on the side or help the Israeli ecosystem, but definitely my main kind of focus is the CMO of Zula. Zula is a very interesting company that was founded or that launched at the end of 2013 at TechCrunch Disrupt. I would say we were probably the only tech company in the history of mankind to launch at TechCrunch Disrupt without a product and win the Audience Choice Award. We literally did not have a product, nor did we have any marketing budget. We were told a few weeks before the event that we were going.
You had no MVP?
We had nothing.
Wow.
It was literally, it was not live. It was nothing. I had like a demo something on my whatever, but yeah, no, it wasn't ready for anything. And, you know, we went there with the kind of thought process that, okay, we'd get a great experience. It would be fun, maybe make some good connections, but that was it. And so we did go, and we were competing against 80 to 100 other companies in the startup alley. For those that aren't familiar with TechCrunch Disrupt, there's the battlefield, which is the stage on which Mark Zuckerberg, Marissa Mayer, and others are judges. And then there's the startup alley, which is basically 100 companies competing for one slot on stage. And so really the thought never crossed our minds that we would win. But sure enough, at the end of the day, Mike Butcher comes over and says, all right, Zula, you guys won. And after we scratched our head for a few minutes, I was like, what? So the reality is that, you know, there were a few reasons that we won. First of all, someone told me, couldn't even tell you who it was, before the event, to not stand at your table, but go and work the floor and, you know, go networking, which is what we'll talk about a little bit later, which is what I was doing all day. But also because I think we did aim to set out to solve a real pain point for everyone. And so when people heard what we were here to solve, I think they very much identified and voted for us. In addition, we did tweet out a few times to vote for us. We got some nice votes, me and Jeff Pulver, and the TechCrunch writers themselves voted for us because they view us more as colleagues than another company just pitching them. So we won that, and we launched on stage, and, you know, as soon as we got off stage, basically Microsoft Ventures threw their money at us. Yeah, you know, I'm exaggerating, but the point is it was a very good launch for us, very unexpected.
So what is that pain point, and what does Zula solve?
So basically, if you think about the way teams communicate, any type of team, whether it's a startup or a law firm or a design firm, anybody really, a group of people, in 2015, they're using email and Skype and Dropbox and Google Drive and WhatsApp and GChat, and the list goes on. And that's absurd. You can't really be productive if you need 15 tools to communicate. And think about it, if you want to send me a file right now, you know, you have to spend 10 minutes thinking where to send it, right? Should I send it on Dropbox or Skype or by email? How can you be productive when you have to think about how to communicate instead of what to communicate? So we aim to solve that and help teams communicate in a streamlined, efficient manner. But as time and history would have it, Slack then launched. Slack was the founder, Stewart Butterfield, the founder of Flickr, and kind of a hot shot. And so they raised $120 million from Andreessen Horowitz, and they set out to, you know, make team communication more efficient, which sounded familiar to us. And we were like, you know, in the beginning, we were like, okay, let's go head to head. And then we realized, listen. So the bottom line is Zula still exists. It's still in the App Store. We have tens of thousands of teams using us and loving it, and it's great. We did focus very strongly on brand and other things, and it's remaining in the App Store, but we are doing something very interesting in the next couple of weeks, kind of taking our core technology, and I don't want to use the P word, pivoting, but we are doing something in a different space. So stay tuned for that. It's a matter of a few weeks. We'll have a beta.
Why don't you, we're not going to launch this episode for another week, so why don't you give us a little hint that our listeners know?
Another week. Yeah, we won't be live in another week, but the hint is that if you think about the way people share an opinion, everyone has an opinion, right? But to share that opinion,
mostly Jews.
Well, that's true too. But to share that opinion on
we
the
have
internet,
two opinions.
Yeah, is not so simple. There's a very strong barrier here stopping me from sharing my opinion. And this is a perfect example. We're podcasting. We have to be in the same room. You have to have all this equipment, right? And so, you know, out of 100 people, you'll come over in the street and ask who here podcasts, maybe one podcasts, even less. And so podcasting, there's a big barrier there. And, you know, even different forms, whether it's blogging or video content or even Meerkat, right? Meerkat's, you know, and Periscope and all these live streaming apps, they're great. I love them. I just did a Meerkat here. But at the end of the day, again, if you ask 100 people, how many of you are comfortable going live on video? very, very small minority are comfortable doing that. And so we're going to hopefully fix that and enable people to actually communicate and share their opinion on the go, on the fly, with no barrier, basically. It's going to be really interesting.
That sounds actually really cool, really great, and really needed. So kudos to that. So I've known you for a few years, but why don't you tell everybody about who you are, where you grew up, how'd you get to Israel, a little bit about Hillel Fuld, the person.
So first of all, I didn't grow up, but I'm from New York originally.
Whereabouts?
Queens. Came to Israel when I was 15, pure Zionistic reasons.
Your whole family moved
Whole
there?
family, yeah. And I went through the normal kind of path of, I went to yeshiva, and this is a Frum audience, right?
Yeah.
I went to yeshiva in Jerusalem, and then I went to Keren B'Yavneh, then I went to Bar Ilan, and I studied political science, not because I wanted to be a politician, but because it was an interesting and relatively easy degree. So I did it. I enjoyed it, but I never, again, from crowds, I could say never had Havamina to be a politician, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Right. I never knew what I wanted to do. And then one day someone recommended that I go check out technical writing. At the time, I had no idea what that was, but it's those people that write the documents that no one reads, basically. You buy a gadget, you get a little pamphlet with it that no one reads. Yeah, I was that guy. So I took a course in technical writing, Right Point in Jerusalem. It was a beginner's course.
Right Point. Who? That's Stern?
Paula Stern.
Paula Stern.
Yeah. It was a beginner's course, and we were told, don't go thinking that you're a 10-year experienced technical writer right now. You're a beginner, and don't send your resume to irrelevant positions. Literally the day I finished that course, I saw the Comverse company that invented voicemail, invented visual voicemail for the iPhone and many other things, was looking for a 10-year experienced technical writer. I was like, all right, I'm going to send my CV. What do I have to lose, right? And so I sent it in, and till today, I don't know why they even called me in, but they did. And they put me in front of a screen on which what they called an SME, a subject matter expert, an engineer basically, is talking to me about the most complex things you can possibly imagine in a third English, a third Hebrew, and a third Russian, basically intended to intimidate me.
You nailed it.
But because I always loved mobile and technology, the things that he was saying were pretty second nature to me. And I was like, okay. So I answered those questions. We were supposed to answer questions. I answered questions, and they invited me in for a second interview and a third interview and a fourth interview. And I kid you not, a fifth interview. At the fifth interview, it was basically, dude, you are super ADHD. Can you really sit and write documents all day long? Now, between me and you and your audience, I didn't think I could. I was like, there's no way I can write this boring stuff. But I was like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. So I said, of course, yeah. So I got that job. And the reality was they had no capacity to train me. It was not a trained, it was not a position to be trained. It was just jump in and start swimming. Right. And it was scary, very scary. But I learned to swim. But I also learned a few lessons over those couple of years that I was at Comverse. Number one is I'm sitting at my desk one day, and I just finished my user guide, and I'm like, I love writing. I really genuinely love writing. I love tech. I'm like, you know what? This was 8 years ago. I'm going to start a blog. Now, today, that's much more mainstream and everyone has a blog, but then it was completely not mainstream. And so I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't have any commercial goals. I just started writing. Every day I'd come into work, I'd have my morning coffee and write something. Sometimes it would be 1,000 words, sometimes it would be 300 words, sometimes it would be a video, something, some content. And again, I did not have any goals to monetize this. It was not a business thing. It was more of a passion thing. But I would come into work every day and I would write.
And this is the tech and marketing blog.
Correct. And I quickly learned that I do indeed love writing about technology. I love writing, but not technical writing, but about technology. And I learned that technical writing is the most boring thing on the planet. And so there was mass layoffs at Comverse, which I was zocha to be part of. And I say that with zero sarcasm because it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I was traumatized at the time. It was my first job. And my wife tells me I was a different person for a month. But had that not happened, and this is to all those people out there that are maybe going through a rough time and looking for a job or just got laid off, it's hard to see the big picture now. But I'm telling you, if that had happened to me, I would never have gone into marketing. So anyway, that happened. Then I got recruited by a finance company. Now I'm allergic to numbers. Like I am the opposite of a finance guy. And so I said to the guy who recruited me, listen, I know nothing about finance. And he said, you'll learn about the actual subject matter, but we need you to write content. And so I took the job and I sat there for 30 days. And this is another important lesson. I literally sat there for 30 days and I just studied the industry. 30 days. I didn't do a thing. Day 31, I started writing articles about, then it's a word now that's already become a dirty word, but it was Forex. At the time, it was less of a dirty word. But so I started writing, day 31, 5 reasons Forex is not gambling, 5 reasons to trade, using a web platform. Different, very basic elementary content. Within a few weeks, I started getting emails from people around the world asking me what currency to trade. And I said, oh my God, what is going on here? And I just realized what hit me is that through content on the internet, you could actually brand yourself as an expert of anything. And I was not by any means an expert on Forex. I had very, very basic knowledge, but I started writing content. Consistent content every day. And so then it hit me. If I combine the two lessons, my passion for writing about tech, but really passion, not everyone's like, oh, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that. Forget that junk. I mean, really, if you're not passionate about a startup or about tech, then don't bother. You really need that passion. So I combine that passion and the lesson of writing content on the internet helps you brand yourself, and the rest is history.
So what happens after Forex? How long were you there writing for the company, and then you left?
So I was there for 2 years, and then I'll never forget the day that Ziv Elul from Interactive, mobile advertising company, came to meet me and said, "What are you doing in finance? Come to mobile." And I was like, "Okay, that's a no-brainer." So I joined them as originally marketing manager, and he sat me down on the first day and he said, "All right, we have to reach 10,000 developers in 2011. How are you going to do that?" And he expected me to say SEO and PPC and online advertising and yada yada. And I said, "I'm going to start a blog for the company." And he's like, "What does that mean?" And I said, "I'm going to start a blog for the company, and I'm not ever going to talk about the company." And he was like, dude, he was like ready to kick me out of his office on day one. He was no idea what I was talking about. I said, "Just go with the flow. It's not the first time I'm doing this. I will, let's just give it a chance."
Right.
And literally within 4 months, this blog of this company in Petach Tikva is quoted on CNN Money as an authority in mobile advertising.
Wow.
Which is something that you couldn't even pay a PR agency to do.
Right.
A PR agency will get you coverage, but to be called an authority in mobile advertising can only be done through content. And so I would, come into work every day, like I said, make my coffee and just write about, the mobile advertising, or not actually the mobile advertising space, the mobile space. And the blog would reach sometimes 750,000 readers a month and was quoted on Tech Meme, alongside TechCrunch and The Next Web and, VentureBeat, the interactive blog. And it was getting ridiculous.
And this was your name behind these articles? Was that part of it?
The author was by Hillel, but it was an interactive blog. It was a company branded blog.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, it generated both brand awareness and just general branding, but also at the end of the day, we have a conversion funnel. So someone's reading it, just good content. We give them the opportunity to sign up and, download our SDK. It's not like we're working in an abyss and we're saying, no, don't convert. No, obviously. Content itself is objective content. But if I want to convert, as someone who's reading this content and is relevant to me, the blog lets that person convert. So I did that for a few years. That was fantastic. And, I'd say like a year ago now, I decided kind of had enough. I'm not so into mobile advertising so much. And so I told them, they were actually, it was good timing because they were readjusting their strategy to go expand in America, more like corporate, marketing. And,
right.
I had enough. So I stayed on as an advisor to the company and I joined Zula.
So now during this time, you started to talk about your blog, your personal blog, but, in a modest way, Hillel Fuld himself has become a brand, right? When you talk about Zula, when you talk about, how you use social media today, how you create your content, how you distribute your content, let's talk a bit about building a personal brand, the importance of building a personal brand. That's why I asked you if your name was on, the content, even though for the company, but it was Hillel Fuld writing it, right? So you had your own blog. You're writing for this other blog. You started getting to social media, I assume. You started expanding your own network and building your own personal brand. How conscious were you of building at Hillel Fuld or Hill's Fuld on Twitter, or building your personal brand, or is it something that just sort of happened?
So that's a good question. A few things. First of all, it was never like a day. I never woke up one day and said, "I'm going to build out a brand." It was never like that. Like I said, it really did stem from true passion, not because I thought it was lucrative or I thought anything, but really I was genuinely passionate about technology and I just had an opinion. I mean, I look back at, in Time Hop, the app that shows me what I did a year ago and 2 years ago, 7 years ago when I was writing like total crap. And even my Facebook and Twitter posts, they weren't good, but it came from a place of passion. So I was just consistent for a long time. I think one of the pillars of good marketing is consistency. I really do think, and don't quote me on this. No, you can quote me on this. But I think that alongside quality is quantity. I really do believe. I think the web works is actually kind of wired to work based on quantity. I think the fundamental difference between TechCrunch and me as a blogger is that they write more. I'm not saying they don't have good writers. They do have good writers, but they just volume, right? Mashable writes 100 posts a day. So, of course, you're going to get 100 times more traffic than I will. I really do think that the web works in volume. So I would just write.
So saying if you would take quantity over quality?
I don't know about quantity over quality, but they're equal on the web. I'm, again, I don't, it really depends.
Because I know Aaron Zakowski is very big into quality, even if it's just once a month as opposed to
a company blog.
Yeah.
So listen, far be it from me, he's an expert, but I disagree. Mm-hmm. I don't think if a blog post a month for a company blog will literally drive no traffic in my experience. And again,
well, I guess it depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to build out your company, if you want something that your customers are going to come to and look at, you want to have that quality there. As
depends what the goal of the blog
SEO,
is.
Right.
What is the goal of the blog? If the goal of the blog is to increase eyeballs and to get more traction and more traffic, then once a month is not enough. Is pretty much of no value, I think.
Right.
But anyway, so it was over the years. But I think just kind of if we're talking on a more philosophical level, and that's not personal what I did, on a more philosophical level, I think that the kind of gap between personal branding and company branding is shrinking every day. And if you look at some of the biggest companies out there, the obvious example is Rackspace and Scoble, right? Why does Rackspace pay Scoble to take pictures of himself in the shower with Google Glass and to interview startups and to travel around the world? Why do they do that? They do that because he elevates the brand, right? The point is, I would never have heard of Rackspace had I not been following Scoble's content, right? And obviously, Guy Kawasaki did it for Apple back in the day, the evangelist kind of role. a company can talk about themselves all day long, and then there'll be another company that's self-promoting, and that's what everyone's doing. Whereas if they have someone who's their kind of like evangelist, who's out there providing value, not selling, but out there providing value and being a thought leader in the space, by extension, the brand is elevated. I think like, I always make the comparison to basketball, right? You know what an alley-oop is, right? So you can pass the ball up, and you can take the ball and dunk it, or you can pass the ball to your teammates. So I feel like marketing and sales is an alley-oop, right? You elevate the brand as much as you can through valuable content, and comes along the sales / user acquisition / whatever, however is you're converting, and dunks it. But that dunk is that much easier because I came across your brand with all the touch points. I'm reading your blog. I follow you on Twitter. You sent me a meme whatever it is. I feel something. There's sentiment here. So when I do come across your Facebook ad, or I come across your salesperson for all I care on the phone, it's like, oh yeah, I know Zula. I follow those guys on Twitter. Oh yeah, I read that blog. That's a great blog post you wrote. Of course I'll try your product. And not only will I try your product, but the biggest problem in mobile today is retention, right? We all have ADD.
Right. So
I'm going to download that app, and in 3 seconds, if I don't like it, it's gone. But if I follow you on Twitter and you provide value, and you never ask me for anything, but you're giving me, those 3 seconds, they won't turn into an eternity. Eventually, if it's not a good product, then I'm going to delete it. But those 3 seconds will turn into 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I'll give you more of a chance because I feel something to your brand. And that's really the concept. So I think that people always ask me like, when do you tweet for Zula? When do you tweet for, I feel like they complement each other perfectly. If there's a personal brand involved in your company and the company brand kind of like complementing each other and like, Yeah,
but when you're going out and you're interviewing a startup or you're at Gems and, you're showing another Gem steak, right? Or Gems beer or anything like that. Is that more the Hillel Fuld brand, or is that part of your job as CMO of Zula?
I don't think there's a line there anymore. I think the line is blurred.
So that's what I'm saying, because I think that's an incredible concept that I guess small companies are starting to do, like you mentioned, Rackspace and Zula and others, of having that evangelist out there that is making noise, that is gathering a following.
Because what do you think when I'm sitting with you right now? Okay, I'm sitting with a startup, and a startup says to me, I'll just give you an example. A startup says to me, all right, here's my pitch. Pitches me the product, and I say, that is the worst pitch I ever heard. Here's your pitch, right? And he says to me, I say, who are your competitors? And he says, I have no competitors. And I'm like, all right, that's ridiculous. Here are your 50 competitors right now. He's like, holy crap, this Hillel guy knows his stuff.
Right.
What is subconsciously, what's he thinking, whether he realizes it or not, is Hillel represents Zula. What's this Zula thing? Right. And it works. This isn't like hypothetical. It works, right? This has been proven over and over again.
Sure.
But the point is, if you're out there providing value as opposed to selling, because people don't like salesmen, especially not on social and on Twitter. It's just not the culture. If you're overselling, then it's just, you're labeled a spammer. Whereas if you're providing value, you're giving good content about your space. I'm not talking about writing, if you're selling Barbie dolls, don't write about ballet, right? Write about your space. Be involved in your space. Be a thought leader in your space. But that is absolutely, in my opinion, the way to do marketing today is by providing value consistently, thereby elevating your brand so that the sales can come and dunk it.
And I think that's genius. And I think that is really where things are going today. But just to point out differences, it's not Zula that's giving good content. It's a specific person, and whether it's Hillel Fuld with Zula or it's, Scoble with Rackspace or any other company out there, if you have that person, it's got to become, people sell to people and people buy from people. And you need to build that relationship, and having a specific person as you said, it's not a spokesperson, so to speak.
No, not at all.
It's an evangelist for the company that's going out, doing his thing, creating value, creating content, doing networking, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then that is just automatically going to funnel up to the brand and company behind the person.
Glide, Sarah does, she's not a salesperson, but, she's this cool kind of personality on the web that's viral, that everyone follows. And it's like her brand is associated with Glide. Just like my name, anywhere my name appears on the internet, Zula is right next to it.
Right.
So I could get on the phone, or I can, get on Twitter and say, download Zula, we're the greatest. Or I can say, here's a great blog post about messaging. Here's a great blog post about whatever trend. And under my name, it's CMO of Zula. I see this 100 times a day. Somebody follows me on Twitter. Within 10 seconds, they're following Zula. Why? Because next to Hillel Fuld, it says CMO of Zula.
Right.
So it's like, okay, this guy's a value. What's Zula? Because he represents Zula.
No, it's brilliant.
So it's subtlety, right? What's the difference between sales and marketing? Both sales and marketing at the end of the day are selling you something. At the end of the day, marketing needs to convert, right? What's the difference? What's the fundamental difference between, obviously one's short term, one's long term? That's already more tactical difference. What is the fundamental difference? I think it's one word: subtlety, right? It's saying it without saying it. Sales is, here's a pair of sunglasses, buy it. Marketing is, here's a blog post about sunglasses. And by the way, I also sell sunglasses, right? It's about subtlety, which is, ironically, I would say not a coincidence, a word that does not exist in Hebrew, the word subtlety.
Is that true?
Yeah. The closest word is probably mi'udan, which doesn't exactly translate. And I think that that's not coincidence.
Right.
We are startup nation because we're doers and we don't play games, right?
Right.
In other words, someone once told me that the difference between an average American and an average Israeli is that, you ask an average American, what do you want to say on your tombstone? Most people would say, I want to be a good person. An Israeli, I don't want to be a friar. It's like the worst thing, right? In America, you put on your blinker It means slow down to the next person, right? What does it mean in Israel? Speed up.
Speed up.
Like, why would I let you in my lane? I'm not a friar. So that's why we're Startup Nation. We don't let anyone in our lane. On the other hand, when you're doing marketing, you need to tell a story. You need to not focus on the instant ROI. You need to think long term. And that's not exactly an Israeli trait, and subtlety is not exactly an Israeli trait. So that's why maybe I've, quote unquote, succeeded in what I'm doing, because I don't think there are many people in Israel that get the whole concept of subtlety.
Right. And I think that's an important note to our listeners out there that, like if you haven't started writing content, if you haven't started putting quality out there and doing this type of subtle marketing or branding, probably storytelling. Now is the time to start, whether it's blog posts or social media posts or giving over. And when we say social media posts, we don't just mean, copying someone else's URL and putting up there, but actually creating valuable content and creating conversation.
And the barrier is lower than ever. I mean, you can literally hit stream and you're live producing content on Meerkat. In 10 seconds, you're live. Right. There's content. So produce content and don't just be another, everyone's talking about social media. It's like, I need to be on Twitter. What are you doing on Twitter? You're just there for the sake of being there. You're just another company making noise. Then don't bother. But if you're there producing really valuable content for the people that you are trying to target, then it's tremendous and super powerful. Right. You need to think don't just like follow. I need to be on Twitter. No, you need to be on Twitter doing something valuable.
Right. And I guess even if you're not working for a company yet, if you have your own personal brand, you want to be able to start gathering a following so that when you do take a position with a company, whether it's your own or someone else's.
Absolutely. I always say this, that unfortunately, entrepreneurs in general miss the train. They think, I'm going to launch a product and I'm going to start sending out messages to my friends saying, like my page, retweet my stuff. You need to build out that network 6 months before you need it. Once you need it and you need those downloads, if the network's not in place, then you miss the train.
Wow. Very important advice. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, and this transitions us into networking because, as you mentioned, you go and you interview startups and you're meeting people all over the place. So how do you define networking and why should an entrepreneur always be building their network? And let's talk about best ways to network today.
Yeah, so I think it's literally all about relationships. Anything you're trying to achieve, not only as an entrepreneur, but in general, it's all about relationships. You said it before. You do business with people, right? Even enterprise companies. I met with an enterprise company the other day, and they're doing full-blown content, social strategy. I mean, this is a company that's selling products for $1 million and up, and still they're doing this. So I think that it's really all about every single thing, with almost no exceptions that I've ever accomplished in my life, in my career, has been a direct result of content and relationships. Everything, every interview that I've done. And, I would say it would be very difficult to find an entrepreneur that reached out to me and I said, no, I'm not willing to meet, or I can't meet, or I have no time to meet. On the other hand, the flip side is that when I offer to help entrepreneurs for free, my schedule is booked for the next 3 months, like lunches, which is fine. But I'm happy to help. But the point is, an entrepreneur reaches out to me, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's whatever it is. First of all, I'm a big fan of meeting smart people just in general. But, it's so important. Not only because you don't know where you're going to meet them again. Forget all the stuff of be nice on the way up. You might meet them on the way down. That's true. But that's not what should drive you is, again, the Shema. You should really understand the importance of meeting people in your network, building out your network, and just building relationships, because it all comes from relationships, right? Whether you're talking about PR, talking about investors, right? People say VCs don't want to meet people. VCs want to be introduced to people. Same thing with journalists, right? Yeah, you can hire a PR agency, or you can build that relationship yourself with the journalist. Right. Because what's a PR agency? I mean, put aside the PR agencies that really are super professional and actually help you kind of wrap the story and do everything. I'm not talking about that. 90% of PR agencies are about basically reaching out to their network and asking them to cover your startup. Right. You can do that yourself. The barrier is as low as it's ever been. So absolutely, I would say, I'm not going to quantify it, but a serious percentage of your time as an entrepreneur should be spent building out your network and building relationships with people. No question about it.
So as you said, even 6 months before, a year before, you never know when it's going to come in handy.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you that without mentioning names, the company, or I should say, a friend of mine from Yeshiva reached out to me probably 6 years ago and says to me, I have a friend who has a startup. I'd love it if he actually wrote, I think he said, I'd love it if you help him generate buzz. I'm like, all right, what does that mean? Like, what can I do? Right. So bottom line is he showed me the product and I actually really, really did like it. And I blogged about it and I got him a few hundred signups and he was super happy. And he says to me, all right, I want to hire you on retainer to write my blog for my company. I'm like, dude, you don't even have a product. It was just a year. Bottom line is this guy happens to be, a very wealthy individual. And he had the resources to, he was able to hire me before he had a product. But basically, once he flipped that switch on his launch, he had hundreds of thousands of users because he had built out that network 3 years before. Now, again, most startups can't afford to do that, but do not start building your network when you need the downloads. No one's, you open a Twitter account and say, oh, download my app. Who the hell are you talking to? No one's listening to you.
Right.
Spend 6 months building out that network by providing value so that when you do say, download my app, people hear you and listen to you.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Do you have a website that runs on WordPress? If you are like me, you want the peace of mind knowing your website is up to date, secure from viruses and hacks, and will always be up and running at peak performance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was also tired of paying the developer hundreds of dollars every time I just wanted a few tweaks to my website. or to add a new product to my e-commerce site, but I couldn't even justify paying for even a half-time developer. That is why I became part of the founding team of WP Milk. WP Milk monitors and secures the website and backs it up daily in the cloud using Amazon S3. If your site goes down, we know about it instantly and work directly with your hosting company without you getting involved. Need to add a page to your website? Keep your plugins updated? How about creating a custom form? With WP Milk, you have unlimited email support and site tweaks to always keep your site running smooth and feature-rich. For less than $5 a day, you can have your very own professional WordPress team at your fingertips, giving you all these features and much more. At that price, how can you afford not to? You have zero risk with our 30-day no questions asked money-back guarantee. So visit WPMilk.com right now and sign up for updates, and you will get a special discount on launch. And now, back to our show. What tools do you use actually to monitor that? Like, if you're building a relationship, let's say you took the PR agent, right? Or someone that works for, like you have someone that you follow on, that writes for, TechCrunch or something, right? And you want to add value to him. You want to, make your, get your name known to him so that when you do come to him 6 months down the line, he'll know who you are. Just by tweeting to him, just by liking his stuff, or do you actually have to? No,
so I'll give you an example. I mean, it really is, I think when you're good at something or when you do something regularly, you kind of take it for granted. So maybe to me it's so obvious and to others it's not, but I'll just say it really is common sense. It really is what you do offline, do online, and what you wouldn't do offline, don't do online. I'll give you a perfect example. Mark Andreessen, who obviously is a legend, the guy who invented the web browser.
You met him or you spoke to him? Yeah,
so I'll tell you the story here. Yeah. So he's seriously a legend. I mean, one of the top legends in tech for sure, one of the biggest VCs out there, invested in any company you can imagine. And I wanted to build a relationship with the guy. He did not know me. I did not know him. I said, I'm going to build a relationship with this guy. Followed him on Twitter. He would ask, I'm just giving an example, obviously. He would say, what color shirt should I wear? I would answer him. What should I eat for lunch? I would answer him. Is there a bubble? I would answer him. Just ongoing, just communication, building a relationship. Then sure enough, one day, I get a little notification, Mark Andreessen has followed you. Because I've engaged with him so many times and he already recognizes my avatar. And now I'm another person. He's like, okay, this is a human being. He's talking. He's nice. He's smart. Obviously, if you have no value to say, no value to add, then that's a different story. Right. He followed back. So then I reached out to him and I wrote him privately and I said, listen, Mark, I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan, blah, 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 blah. I've interviewed the following people. I would love to interview you. So he says, let's do it. I was like, all right, so I'll send you the email. I'll email you the question. He's like, no, let's do it on Twitter. I'm like, you mean like direct message, like privately message you the question? He's like, no, let's do it publicly. Now, when you interview Mark Andreessen publicly, that means probably millions of people are seeing it.
Right.
So I interviewed him. I shot him a question. He shot me the answer. I shot him a question. He shot me all public. It was that day I got more followers than ever. And I promised him 10 questions. And then the 11th question, I was like, it was just going so well. I couldn't stop. I was like, all right, bonus question. When are you opening an office in Tel Aviv? And he gave me a scoop. He's like, we have a one office rule, but as soon as we break that rule and we open another office, our next office is in Tel Aviv, which was huge. Wow. So like 10 seconds after it ended, VentureBeat reached out to me like, we published that article. I was like, yeah. Then I became a contributor to VentureBeat. I started writing for VentureBeat. All from building a relationship with Mark Andreessen. Amazing. Just for one example, and many, many other examples. Steve Wozniak is another example. Just an unbelievable story.
Well, tell us about that. I mean,
so years and years ago, right? Years and years ago, I said to myself,
are you an Apple evangelist? I mean,
I'm a big fan, yeah. So years and years ago, I said to myself, I'm going to start interviewing people. A strategy. I really want to interview people, both to learn from them. A, B, when you interview someone, popular, they're going to tweet about it. That's going to get you more traffic. Let's not, kid ourselves.
Why do you think I'm doing this podcast with you?
Yeah, that's funny. So C, it was really just for good content and for value to my readers. So I really made a list of the top dogs. I mean, I'm talking Marissa Mayer, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Wozniak, and others. And I said to myself, as I'm writing this list, okay, there's no freaking way you're going to get to even half of these. So till today, I've interviewed Guy Kawasaki, obviously Scoble, Dennis Crowley from Foursquare, Alyssa Milano, the actress, Jerry Ryan from Star Trek, like unbelievable people. And Steve Wozniak was at the top of my list. Steve Wozniak founded Apple with Steve Jobs. He's unbelievable. He's just unbelievable. There's no other word. And so I said, I want to interview this guy. And I really kind of laughed at myself as I said to myself, I want to interview him. Like, there's no way this is ever going to happen. But I said, I'm going to do it. And so slowly but surely started engaging with his content more on Facebook and on Twitter, because on Twitter he's more like into Foursquare check-ins. If you'll ever follow him on Twitter, you'll see it's all Foursquare check-ins. Right. Facebook, he's really active. Slowly but surely, we started, I just started engaging, liking his stuff, commenting, but not just commenting for the sake of commenting, but actually trying to provide value. Again, I know I keep saying that, and it's becoming cliche already, but he asks a question, I answer. He says something, I give but really genuine, tried, at least insightful stuff. Sure enough, after, I don't even remember how long, he friended me on Facebook, which was wow, awesome.
That must have been
surreal. So I wrote him a message right away. I wrote him a message. Listen, obviously a tremendous, tremendous fan. Would love to interview you for my blog. He's like, all right, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. 2 weeks later, Steve Jobs died. So that was the end of that opportunity. And he was like, I can't, the news is everybody's all over me. They're driving me nuts. So we can't do this. So I said, fine, I'm sorry.
Was he close with Steve till the end?
Of course, yeah, like brothers. So I said, I'm really sorry for your loss, and that was the end of that. And I didn't. Obviously, it's all about being quote unquote persistent without being annoying and being respectful. So I said, I stepped back. Fast forward a year, and I pinged him again. I said, I would love to have that interview. He's like, I just really can't. Whatever, fine. Fast forward a year, tried again. I think after 3 or 4 years that I was once a year, I'm not bothering the guy. I message him on Facebook once a year. I say, I really would mean the world to me. I was trying to be as genuine as I really was. It really wouldn't. In other words, I wasn't saying it would mean the world to me to try to convince him. Really, I was very excited about doing it. Bottom line is, he finally said, let's do it. I was like through the roof happy. I sent him a few questions by email. He responded like amazing answers, like really insightful answers. And that was awesome. Great. Fine. Fantastic. Fast forward 3 months. Wozniak's coming to Israel for 24 hours. I was like, there's no freaking way I'm not meeting the guy. So we met in the Tel Aviv lobby of the Intercontinental, I believe it was. Yeah. And, bottom line is, I'm waiting for him and I'm trembling. I'm meeting the founder of Apple. I'm trembling. A guy comes down with his like dirty laundry. He brings it to the reception. He's like, can you do my, I was like, this guy's a human being.
You're like, I'll do your laundry.
But really, it occurred to me, like, I think of him as this like legend, but he's just a human being. He's a down to earth human being. So we sat in the lobby and we schmoozed for like a good hour and a half, 2 hours.
Are you kidding me? He was there for 24 hours and you got 2 hours of his time.
It was unbelievable. And I interviewed him on video, and that was an amazing opportunity. And since then, I posted, it was funny, a few weeks ago, it was the year since I interviewed him.
Right.
So I posted on Facebook because I got it in Time Hop. I posted on Facebook. I wrote something like, a year ago today was the highlight of my career. I interviewed Steve Wozniak. Blah, blah, blah. Within, I kid you not, 30 seconds of me posting that, he writes in the comments, meeting Hillel was the highlight of my life too. Now, So obviously, he's Steve Wozniak. He's the nicest guy in the world. He clearly doesn't mean that, which is fine. But the fact that Steve Wozniak, here's the lesson, though. Here's the lesson.
It's very humbling also of him. Right?
Yes, but here's the lesson, right? So all this is great, and everyone who's listening is probably thinking, okay, because you have a lot of followers, here's the lesson. I'm sitting in my house in Beit Shemesh, guys. All right. Honestly, I built this from nothing. I didn't do anything magical. I just built out relationships. If you think that I did something magical here and you're not able to achieve this, you're completely wrong. I'm sitting in my house in Beit Shemesh and I'm building these relationships. I'm not there. I'm not face to face. You can do this from wherever you are in the world. I'm sitting in my house, in Beit Shemesh a few years ago. I got a push notification. Alyssa Milano is following you. Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss? I don't know if you're familiar. She's like, 40-something years old.
I'm sure none of our listeners know who she is.
No?
I'm kidding. I don't know.
Anyway, she's millions and millions of followers, huge geek on Twitter, and I've been following her for years. And then she followed me, and I wrote her a message, and I'm like, pardon my whatever, but what the hell? How the hell did you come across me? Like, again, I'm sitting in my house. How did you? So she said to me, on Twitter, every freaking day, retweet Hillel Fuld, retweet Hillel. Someone keeps tweeting your blog post. And I'm like, who is this Hillel Fuld guy that writes such good content? And I clicked on your bio. I'm like, oh, he's a cute picture. He's smiling. He seems nice. He has a funny bio. He seems like a nice guy. I followed him. So I said, fine, that's fantastic. Now, how does that help my life? How does that in any way? It's cute. I could say Alyssa Milano follows me on Twitter, but what does that really do? Not much, right? Fast forward a year, and I get a press release from an Israeli company about a startup that they have, and I liked it, and whatever. It was a whole long story, but I wrote a blog post about it, and I tweeted that blog post. She retweeted it. Some Arab sheik in Saudi Arabia with 50 million followers retweeted her. Their servers in Haifa melted.
Are you kidding me?
The whole entire company launched from one tweet just because she retweeted me. So It was nice that I built it was literally an entire company launched because of the fact that she followed me. So the point is, you never know where any of these. But if you don't write this content and if you don't build out those relationships, none of these things could ever happen. Last summer I was driving on the Ayalon in the highway in Israel, and there was an alarm. There was a rocket from Gaza. And, we all pulled over to the side of the road, and we were all used to it already, but it was a very surreal scene because all the cars on the road were parked sideways. This is the main highway of Israel. And we were all, walking to the side of the road, taking our time. There was this one woman there who was petrified. Clearly it was her first kind of, rocket situation. And, oh, by the way, side point, we had a rocket siren when I was meeting with Wozniak. I brought him to a bomb shelter.
Oh, really?
First bomb shelter. It was crazy. But anyway, so we're standing on the side of the road, and this woman was like, she's shaking. So I took out my iPhone.
You saved his life. No wonder he'll.
So I took a picture of this woman on the side of the road, and I tweeted that picture. That picture got 1,200 retweets. It got picked up by Mashable, by BuzzFeed, by Times. It got like 50 to 60 million views from one tweet. Why was I able to do that? Not because I have 30,000 followers. 30,000 followers doesn't equal 50 million. There's no correlation here. The reality is it all takes is one person it was powerful content. That's it. Powerful content goes very, very, very far. 30,000 followers is irrelevant. You could have one follower. One follower retweets it, and that one follower has one Alyssa Milano following them, and it's game over, right? So the whole thought of, you have a lot of followers, that it's not true. Get on Twitter, produce content, build out that network, and the sky's the limit.
And also people that, just to point out, and this is incredible content and really incredible stuff that you're giving over here. So thank you for that.
Sure.
But people think they see Hillel Fuld, they come across his Twitter account or see someone that he's interviewed. And you're right, people have that perception of, the guy got lucky. He was working for a company and he, and after a year, he's already, being, getting all this press and, retweets and all that stuff. And as you're saying, that's not true. It took hard work. It took years.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes.
First of all, anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that I'm up at 3:30 every morning. Literally. Like I'm already, flipboarding and tweeting at 3:30 in the morning, reading content, trying to get up to date on what's going on. I don't sleep much. But yeah, I've been, for years and years and years, my dad would would help me at the end of the month because I wasn't making any money from my blog. And everyone around me was like, what are you doing? Why are you meeting startups and not taking money? Why are you blogging and not monetizing? Why are you mentoring at Google and not charging them? And I said to everyone, like, listen, I'm thinking of building something much bigger than taking 50 shekel from a startup and meeting for lunch, Right. At the end of the day, thank God now I'm kind of quote unquote seeing the ROI and, I'm working my butt off, but I'm okay. The point is for years and years when I wasn't making money from what I'm doing, I just followed my heart. Like really, I know that sounds corny, but I followed my passion, honestly. I wasn't making anything from it. Really incredible.
Really incredible. One of the things that really impresses me most about you, and I know you've seen me say this.
My steaks, huh?
No, besides the steaks, that really gives me chills when I see it. And really it's, we talk about, what you could do with your network and what you could do, the relationships you could build. But one of the things that you are also known for, one of the things that I love most and inspires me the most is you're getting people jobs. And in Israel, for Anglos especially, it's not so easy. And being that you're also an extremely busy guy working for companies, doing all these things, yet you have gotten jobs for over 100 different people. And I know that you always write how incredible that feels and is the best feeling in the world. But I mean, to me, that's like the most inspiring part of who Hillel Fuld is. So how did that get started? When did you realize that, hey, this is something you're actively doing, and just like tell us about that.
So I would say definitely out of all many different things that I'm busy doing. By the way, I have 5 kids at home. In addition to all this, definitely getting people jobs is for sure, the most enjoyable and satisfying thing out of everything. How did it happen? Can't even tell you, but I'll tell you that
you're up to 101 now.
104, man.
104. Come on, I got to keep up.
Yeah, I would meet companies, I would meet entrepreneurs, and I would just start making the match, and it just slowly but surely happened. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to make this a much more kind of formal thing. And I put it on Google Drive. On my Google Drive, I have a directory of 20 folders of, admin, COO, HR, IT, et cetera. And in each folder, anywhere between 20 and 150 CVs of people looking for jobs. And so when a company, the truth is that at this point, it takes very little effort on my end. Today alone, I think probably 20 companies literally today, wrote me and said, I'm looking for this position. All I did was take a copy, a link, and send them the link to that folder. Putting together that directory took me years and years, but now it's already very, very simple. I just literally send a link, say, you go through it. They say to me, I need a full stack developer. I'm like, listen, I don't filter down. I'm not a headhunter. I have my tech folder. It's all developers. Some of them are iOS, some of them are Android, some are full stacks. You do the work, but here's the folder. And for them, it's like instead of paying a headhunter, full salary, they're getting this for free, which might cause some animosity, I think, maybe in the world of headhunt. And by the way, PR is the same story. Like I'm helping startups. I'm not doing PR, but I'll make an introduction to TechCrunch, make an introduction to the next web, whatever it is. I'm not taking anything for that. And so I guess I know that some PR agencies are upset about that also. What am I going to tell you? You're not going to help people because, whatever. So the point is, right now I have this, I'll show it to you. It's crazy. Too bad we're not on video. I could show this directory. It's wild. My marketing folder.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Well, I can't show me pictures of public because there's things that are, there are some CVs in there that people aren't allowed to know.
Like show me the folder.
Yeah, I can show you the screenshot for sure. But it's crazy. I mean, the marketing folder has probably 200 CVs in it.
And you know all these people or?
No. So I don't know. No, I don't know majority of these people.
I say if a guy out there today wants to get a job, he's living in Israel. First of all, is it specifically Anglos living in Israel?
No, not at all. It's
specifically tech in Israel.
Yeah, you've gotten people jobs in New York, but yeah, it's in Israel basically. Somebody writes me and says to me, I'm looking for a job as product. I say, all right, send me your CV. I look at the CV. If it's not horrible, then I'll put it in the folder. Wow. I'm not by any means filtering it and, doing due diligence on these people. I can't, obviously. I'll never get anything done. But I will look at a CV, and that's not a trivial thing because I'm getting 1,000 CVs a week. I will glance at it and say, no, this isn't good because X, Y, and Z. Like, I'll give you an example. I was just talking to someone about this morning. For example, I have all these CVs, and if your name isn't in the file name, then I have no way to know who it is. So when a company says, send me a good CV, I can't send your CV because it says, if the name of your file is CV, it should be your first name dot your last name dot PDF. It should be a PDF, not a doc. I don't want other people editing it, right?
Right.
You should try to get it on one page. These are things that I tell people all the time. I definitely don't spend 20 minutes on each CV. I'll never get anything done. But when someone sends me a CV, I'll glance at it and say, send it back again as a PDF or send it again as one page, and I'll put it in the folder. And then when someone says I need a biz dev position, I'll send them the biz dev folder.
And how should people send you their CVs?
It's Hill's Fuld, HILZ, like zebra, Fuld, FULD at Gmail.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the show
notes. But just keep it super short. Don't send me a Megillah. Send me hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm looking for a product position. Here's my CV. That's all I need.
And just to again, the mitzvah involved in getting someone a job is the highest form of tzedakah, according to the Rambam. I think everybody could agree. When you get somebody a job that they can now support their families,
right. It's the best feeling. It really is the best feeling because I think about the family, right? I mean, that's what gives me like real joy. I mean, this is a family that can now support themselves because I spent 5 minutes sending a CV. Really, I don't mean to belittle it, but it's really not very difficult on my end. All I do is send a link. But the point is,
but like we mentioned before, this didn't happen in a week. Right. This is from years and years of you networking and getting your name out.
Which is an interesting point, by the way. It's funny that you say that because I think that a lot of people don't maybe realize that they see kind of like the fruits, of the labor, but they don't realize how much labor went into it. They're like, I'll give you a perfect example. We're talking about marketing, how many times a day do you think I get, please like my page? Why? Because they say, this guy has a big network. Let's, hitch a ride on his network. But what they're really saying is, what they're saying in essence is you spent all these years building out your network. I'm too lazy to do it myself. So just go spam your network now. Like, why would I like a page again about ballet when anybody who follows me knows that I'm not into ballet? They're going to realize in 2 seconds.
Are you anti-ballet? Is that what you're saying here, Hillel?
I don't know. I'm giving anything. But the point is, that really upsets me, to be honest. And I get that 100 times a day easily. It's crazy. And I actually wrote a blog post about that exact topic. I called it, "For the love of God, stop sending me your irrelevant Facebook page." And I send it to people every day. And they're like, "No, it's not irrelevant." I'm like, dude, just, don't ask people for likes. Give me a reason to like your content. That was the whole concept. I think Jared Morgenstern, him? He's
He's
the one that
I actually met him in Facebook about 10 years ago.
He's the guy that came up with the like concept.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He's a likable guy. He's a really great guy.
The concept is like pretty, logical. It's like, if I like content, then I want to be able to share that emotion and like it. What did marketers do? They ruined it. Like they ruin everything. Right? It's like what, I'm going to beg you for likes. No, give me a reason to like it. Give me some value and I'll click like. Right. Don't beg me for liking your crappy content. It's the opposite. That's what happens,
Sure. Well, as we're winding down this interview, I mean, it's really been incredible content and it has really great stuff. But let's just ask, I'll have you here ask you a couple more questions. One, what would you say is the best advice you've ever received and from who?
Best advice you ever received? Oh, wow. So I couldn't tell you from who because I don't remember who said it. I know you're supposed to say B'Shem Omro, but what's interesting, by the way?
Yeah.
We have a Frum audience, right?
Yes.
So everyone quotes that. Who said it?
Who said it?
No one knows. Isn't that ironic? Pretty ironic, right?
No, it's a Gemara.
Yeah, but who said it? What's the name of the rabbi that said that?
It's a Gemara. I know
no one knows. Everyone says, no one knows who said it. Like, okay, really? Come on, people. So I don't even remember who said it, but I read somewhere. But I will tell you in a minute the best advice I ever got, and this is actually very relevant to your audience. But someone said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. Listen twice as much as you talk. Or someone else said, talk is cheap because supply exceeds demand. Which is smart. But I'll tell you, really, honestly, the most, maybe this is getting a little too philosophical or maybe too frum, but.
No, it's great, please. That's what we're here for. This
is actually beautiful. I was at a little men's club here in Beit Shemesh on Friday, pre-Shabbos men's club we do every Friday.
Right.
They asked me to give a Dvar Torah, and I was like, I don't have a Dvar Torah, but then it hit me all of a sudden, right? This week's Parsha, and again, I don't know if this isn't a Torah podcast, but I'll say that.
No, we always go into Torah. Yeah,
awesome.
We have a
this week's Parsha, this last week's Parsha.
If you're ever going to give a Dvar Torah on a podcast, this is it.
So this is actually, it is Torah, but it is, I think, at least life-changing advice. I'm serious. This week's Parsha, we had the man, right? You have bread that tastes like anything falling from the sky, right? And what did Bnei Yisrael say? Nafshenu katzav alechem haklokel. We're sick of this crappy bread. Are you kidding me right now? It reminds me of the Louis C.K. video. Everything's amazing and nobody's happy. Are you kidding me right now? You got steaks falling from the sky and you're not happy? So what does that teach us? Perspective, right? So I once heard it from KBY. Rav Riflin.
Okay.
He's a mashgiach of KBY. He said the following thing, and honestly, I can count on one hand the amount of Divrei Torah that I've heard in my life that fundamentally shifted my life. This is one of them. And this isn't a Torah thing. This applies to any human being. He said like this. We say in Aleinu, right? At the end of every prayer, we say Aleinu. We say Bashamayim Mima'al, in the sky above, V'ala Aretz Mitachas, and the ground beneath. So the obvious question is why the repetition? We know that the sky is above and the ground is beneath. Why couldn't it just say Bashamayim in the sky, V'ala Aretz? So he said the following, I think it's a beautiful thought. He said things that are bashamayim, anything that has to do with the sky, spirituality, anything that's substantial, anything that's real, always look mima'al, always look above and strive to be better. Things that are al ha'aretz, right, wealth, health, anything that has to do with kind of physical, right, always look mitachas and say it could be so much worse. It's all about perspective, right?
That is incredible.
You could get bread falling from the sky and you're not happy because your perspective, your lens is dirty. There's something wrong with your perspective. But the bottom line is, God forbid, you could be sick. There's always someone worse. There's always someone worse off. Appreciate what you have. You're breathing. Say thank you for that, right? On the other hand, you're trying to be a good person. There's always people out there that are doing unbelievable things. Look at them and say, I want to be better. So it's all about perspective. And I think that is probably the best advice I ever got.
That's brilliant. That's actually fantastic. Really,
I thought
really
so
great.
too.
Yeah, no, I really like that. One more question.
Sure.
And actually, we have two more questions. One is a bonus question because I know you're into that.
All right.
But the last question before the bonus question is, what do you read? What books are you reading? What would you say is like the best book for an entrepreneur?
Books, as in like physical books?
As in, what could be on a Kindle, but
I read Jobs. That was fantastic. I found that a very inspiring story. Yeah, I really like Jobs. The truth is, I don't have, unfortunately, much time to actually read books.
Right.
Because I'm always...
So you never read marketing books? You're not into Seth Godin or any of these guys?
I read Seth Godin's blog sometimes.
Didn't Andreessen have a book?
I don't know. I didn't read Andreessen's book. I read Gary's book.
Which one?
Both.
Both of them.
Right?
Jab,
right? Yeah. And Crush It.
Crush It, yeah.
He put out a third one, didn't he?
No, he's not yet.
Okay. I don't read that often books. Generally, I'm reading online content. I don't have time for extra. But I do have someone told me this week about a book I need to read, and I can't even remember what it is right now. I don't remember what it is right now. But point is, I should read more. That's the bottom line. I should read more. Maybe I should follow.
If there's more time in your day, maybe.
Yeah, I should follow Zuck's book club.
Yeah, does he?
Does that, yeah.
Okay. Well, that has actually been fantastic. So, Hillel, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You gave us a really incredible amount of value, and wish you to continue best of hatzlacha and best luck and keep making those matches.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Hillel.
Thank you for listening to the Frum Entrepreneur Podcast with Nahum Kligman. We hope you learned something valuable and will share this with your friends. For show notes, archives of previous episodes,